Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars news update. It is I, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. Today we have some brand new information for Skeleton Crew and Andor's second season. Let's begin with that. Empire magazine's latest issue is out, and we have some brand new photos for the second season. This one is my favourite, filmed in Valencia at the University of the Arts and Sciences. We've got Mon Mothma having a pretty heated discussion with Luthen. And look in the background, some really cool stormtroopers. Mon Mothma is holding some kind of data pad, and Luthen and her are having a bit of a head-to-head. If I had to guess, I would say the founding of the rebellion, which we're gonna see, all of the stuff with Mon Mothma leaving the Senate with the help of the Ghost Crew, founding the base on Yavin 4. There must be a reason we don't see Luthen in Rogue One and the original trilogy. I think there's a betrayal at some point. Maybe this is before Mon Mothma leaves the Senate, and Luthen is urging her to take some kind of action. We know they had private meetings. Luthen refers to his Axis cell as the Inner Circle, and Mon Mothma was part of it. But Luthen puts a lot of pressure on her for the financial side. Season 1 already set up a massive schism between the two characters. While they both have the same endgame in mind, they have differing ideas on how to get there. Luthen takes massive risks. Mon Mothma doesn't approve of his tactics. In particular with the Aldani heist, it's similar to why she doesn't approve of partisans like Saw further down the line. She knew that people died during the operation, and she was worried about the aftermath, and the accounting of the legitimacy of the credits. She's terrified of being caught. She knew full well that Palpatine's retribution would be harsh. Luthen, on the other hand, also knew that, but he's more than happy with sacrifice. He knows that provoking the Empire and putting a stick in their eye would result in suffering, necessary suffering, but he needs the galaxy at large to see how evil the Empire is. And this is a major issue with the rebellion that Tony Gilroy is going to bring to a head. Everyone has differing beliefs, and like I say, we have to wonder, where did Luthen go if he's not part of the founding of the Rebel Alliance? What is going to happen in Season 2? Is Cassian going to betray him? Is Mon going to throw him under the bus? Is Mon Mothma going to conspire behind his back? Either way, she's going to cut ties with him in order to preserve the integrity of the upcoming alliance. Is Luthen going to be Anto Kriegered? The new photo brings up all kinds of questions. Mon Mothma has new people in her life all the time, keeping a close eye on her, and we know we can't even trust her husband Perrin. So there's a lot of tension. I wouldn't be surprised if Luthen is more extreme in Season 2, much more resembling a partisan like Saw Gerrera. The role he's going to play sets Cassian and others on the path they eventually go down. Then we have Tony Gilroy behind the scenes with Genevieve O'Reilly, Mon Mothma. This is another one of her parties on Coruscant. I'm loving the natural continuation from the first season. Then we have Cassian doing some undercover work, looking inside a cave. Not too much context on this. And then we have two love interests, Dedra Meero and Cyril Khan, having some kind of conversation with some very awkward chemistry at the headquarters of the ISB. Dedra Meero on her own. I'm sorry the quality of this isn't too great. Luthen Rael on his own. This looks like he's going to have a conversation with Loney, one of his spies in the ISB, who was having doubts in the last season before Luthen gave his iconic speech. And a huge spoiler, the relationship between Bix and Cassian, which we saw rekindled at the end of the first season. Some really cool photos, and so now my dear friends, a massive connection that Skeleton Crew is about to make. The Old Republic. Whether you played Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic 2, or Star Wars The Old Republic, 99% of that era takes place in Star Wars Legends. And while Lucasfilm intends or intended to make a remake, there isn't much of that era that is canon. Well, that is until December 3rd. Tens of thousands of years down the timeline in Skeleton Crew, Lucasfilm is finally canonizing some elements of it. And you're probably thinking, well, how? Well, it turns out, according to the showrunner, the homeworld of the children in the show, Atatin, was described as, quote, the crown jewel of the Old Republic. We're not talking about the iteration of the Republic as the prequel trilogy, but the one before the Ruusan Reformation, the one from before the New Sith Wars, 1,000 years BBY. In the trailer, we saw that Wim has an Old Republic credit, and we now know the planet of Atatin has lived in isolation of the rest of the galaxy. So many of the tales of the Jedi, many tales of the Jedi-Sith Wars are still spoken about there. And this is why the children are so obsessed with Jude Law's character potentially being a Jedi. They see them as heroes. And maybe this planet was protected from the reign of the Empire, so they were never brainwashed into thinking the Jedi were the enemy. Another reason this is huge, my dear friends, is it explains why bounty hunters and pirates are trying to follow the kids home, because they've heard stories of this place. It's a treasure trove. And basically, guys, Chris Ford, the series co-creator, said this: "We wanted to show that the kids have heard of the Jedi. They know a good amount about them, tales of good versus evil. They see Jedi as fairy tales, stories of Knights of the Round Table. It's explicit. We didn't want a weird meta thing. So women as friends know about the Jedi. They've read the stories, they even do a pretend lightsaber fight. But we were very clear we didn't want to cross certain lines. So when they pretend to do the lightsaber fight, they make the wrong sound, because they've never met a Jedi, they've just heard of them, the guardians of peace and justice. And here's a funny tidbit. They have toys of Jedi, but they're not made from Kenner or Hasbro, more like old-fashioned toys, pre-commercialization." This is such a vital piece of information, because it means some of the Easter eggs we come across could have massive implications, overlaps from legends into canon. It's a long shot, but imagine we get allusions to Revan, Bastila Shan, Mitra Surik. I bring her up because hundreds of years down the line, her name was invoked almost like blasphemy, almost like an expression of shock. People would say, "Surik's blade, what is going on?" Little things like that. The fact these kids know about the Jedi is very important to further down the timeline, because they would still be around by the sequel trilogy. They'd be all grown up. Were some of them involved in the Battle of Exegol? Did they heed Lando's call to action, inspired by the tales of the Jedi of old? Just a thought I had. But another major connection, which I have spoken about before, is Zim's ancient throne world. If you didn't see my video on that subject, Zim, also known as Zim the Despot, was a warlord who died thousands of years ago. He might have been Old Republic era. His treasures were known to have skull iconography, and based on what we know from the trailers, some of this treasure does match. So that could be another connection. But there is more, my dear friends. Another major reveal from the showrunners, because they've been doing press, is there is a reference to the Star Wars Holiday Special, which John Watts describes as, quote, his favourite part of the new show. We don't know what he's referring to. Could it be an old Wookiee watching virtual reality at home? I'm just being silly. It could be one of the side characters. In the same way there are connections to The Mandalorian and the Ewok movies. There could be another very special reference here. Maybe it's Life Day. Also, something else which I found very interesting is we seem to have our first glimpse of Jodnar Narwood's helmet. Do you guys remember Jude Law alluded to the fact he had to have short hair because he's got a helmet? I think this is it. Not to mention some more familiar aliens, Ketirians from The Last Jedi, and Snivians, also known as Snaggletooth, from the original trilogy. These species have featured in many other projects since, but this is a classic callback to A New Hope.